My name is Jeremy Clark, Executive Director of Grace Ministries International. The purpose of this video is to give you an overview of what GMI is and how we function as an organization, but also the steps for joining us or becoming a GMI missionary. GMI is a Bible-believing missionary sending organization with a mission to share God's grace with the world. We want to share with the world that God became flesh. He lived here among us. He lived a sinless life. He died for our sins, and then he rose again to give us his life, to give us his righteousness if we choose to accept that message. Now, how do we do that? How do we go about sharing God's grace with the world? As an organization, we send missionaries out into the world. Now, we send them to different countries so they can equip local believers to do four things. First of all, we want to work with local believers so we can train them in evangelizing and reaching the lost. This is going to take so many different forms because each believer has unique talents and abilities and experiences that help them to reach a different segment of society. Second, we want to plant local churches. Now, what this means is that we want to see local churches form, congregations formed that have their own local pastors and have their own leadership. They're self-sustaining, they're independent, so they can continue on reaching their communities for Christ. Third, we want to train local believers and work with local believers to train others for life and ministry. This is just another form of discipleship, and it's so important that we are training others in theological education, in ministry, so that we see new generations of pastors and even missionaries being produced in the fields where we're working. Fourth, we recognize there are so many needs around this world, both spiritual and physical, and we want to be able to meet those needs with God's love so that we can ultimately share who Jesus Christ is. One thing we as human beings are always concerned about are results, and we're always wondering what are the results of what we're doing, of our activity, of our productivity. And so one question we ask is, how much can one person do, or how much can one missionary do? The answer is quite a lot, but the way we get to that point is maybe a little counterintuitive. For the missionary to be able to accomplish a lot, really it requires that we're not self-focused. It requires that we don't develop ministries that focus on ourselves, but we want to always be investing in others, discipling others to watch them develop their own ministries, whether it be a church or a Bible training program, a discipleship program, whatever it might be. We want to be able to see that person or that team that we're investing in develop their own ministry and have that be able to run its course naturally without it depending upon us. This process I just described is really called multiplication, and we want to know a little bit more about how we can multiply ourselves in the ministry. So to do this, first of all, when we're working with other believers in whatever field we're in, we want to dream with a team of local believers. So the missionary is going to be with a team of local believers, and they're going to dream together about some ideas or some sort of ministry. Now, when we do that, when the missionary does that, and they're working together with local believers and thinking about plans for a ministry, the ministry naturally will take on the cultural context of the country or the part of the country, the region of the country they're in. But also it'll take into account the resources available and the talents of the people on the team. And so it becomes an effort of the local believers and the missionary dreaming together. The second part of this process of multiplication is when the missionary is still a part of this team and the missionary is merely facilitating or empowering the team to develop that ministry. And so they're working together to develop goals, to develop plans, to develop a step-by-step procedure or some sort of plan then to achieve and arrive at a goal where they want to go in the future with this ministry. Now, lastly, because the dreaming and the empowering don't really depend solely upon the missionary, those two first phases, then the missionary can ultimately release this ministry to local believers. And the missionary is able to step away. One of the mistakes we make oftentimes in missions is that we allow a ministry to depend upon us in terms of our finances, our time, our ideas, our energy. And we don't want that to be the case because we ultimately want to release this ministry so that the missionary can then move on and begin this process somewhere else in the same city, the same country, or even another country. Because of the ministry cycle I just explained, GMI views our missionaries as the most valuable or most important part of our organization. We need more missionaries. Our fields are growing, and we also have a desire to go into new countries and new places around the world to do ministry. Back in 2013, the board of GMI adopted what we call Vision 2023. It's a 10-year ministry plan or a strategic plan. And really, we saw the need for this plan because as an organization, if we don't have a direction, we don't have goals, if we're not seeking to expand and grow, we're ultimately going to contract. So we established Vision 2023, and the basis of Vision 2023 is to open up 8 new fields. That means to go into 8 new countries, to send missionaries into 8 new countries. Now, obviously, to do this, we need more missionaries to join our team. And so we also set some ambitious goals about recruiting missionaries and missionary families from both the U.S. and from around the world. As you can see, to date, we've opened up 5 new fields of the 8 new fields that we want to establish. We also have recruited 7 new U.S. missionary families or missionaries to join our team, our missionary team. And we've also seen the Lord provide 10 new international missionaries or missionary families to join us. So that's 17 of 26 to date. And we're so excited about all the progress that has been made and all the ways the Lord has blessed us to help us reach these goals. We would be so thankful to the Lord if we could even exceed our Vision 2023 goals, to see more than 8 fields open or more than 16 U.S. missionaries or missionary families join our team, or more than 10 families or missionaries from around the world who would join our GMI missionary family to help us achieve our goals. The question now is, what are we looking for in a missionary candidate? The first qualification is we're looking for believers with a desire to serve as missionaries, to serve in other parts of the world. 1 Timothy 3:1 says, where Paul writes to Timothy, he writes this, "This is a faithful saying, if a man desires the position of a bishop or an overseer or a pastor, he desires a good work." And that's what we're looking for in someone who wants to join our missionary team, someone who has this desire. Second of all, we're looking for college graduates with at least 1 year of theological education or its equivalent. This is something that GMI wants to help with as well. We have scholarships for both those who are entering into college for Grace Christian University, but we also have scholarships to continue your theological education even if you already have a college degree, so that you can be qualified to serve as a GMI missionary. Next, we want you to be in agreement with our doctrinal statement, and you can find that on our website, gracem.org. We also are looking for people with a desire to empower others. Now, we already talked about the idea of multiplication in our philosophy of ministry when it comes to that, but we want to see others join our team who have a desire to empower others and disciple and to train others so they can go out and do the work of ministry. We're also looking for team players, and what we mean by that is we're looking for people with the humility and the ability to work effectively on teams to accomplish our fourfold ministry focus. So we're looking for others who will put others' interests before their own, as Paul writes in Philippians chapter 2. Now we want to take a look at the opportunities that we have on our various fields. In the context of those 4 things that we want to do well, and that is sending missionaries around the world to different countries to empower and to equip local believers to evangelize the lost, to plant churches, to disciple and train others, and to share God's love through acts of mercy, I want to share with you some of the opportunities, just a few of the opportunities we have around the world with GMI. I'll show you a couple of maps and you'll see three different colored countries on these maps. The first is purple. Congo, Cameroon, and the Netherlands are represented here in purple. And those are what we call affiliated fields. And what an affiliated field is, it's a place where we once had missionaries serving but no longer do, or it's a country where we've had significant ministry contact with church leaders or churches there that we've maintained over the years. The next color is green, and those are places or countries we call active fields where we have missionaries currently residing. Finally, we have the countries in yellow, and those are target fields, and those are places where we've done some survey work, we've done some exploratory trips, and we're looking to send missionaries there, or we have plans to do so. So let me share with you three opportunities we have right now in Africa. And again, being a missionary, and when a missionary comes to us, there are all kinds of diverse ministries a missionary can do, and a lot of things we haven't even thought of. And so it really depends upon the missionary's experience, their background, what it is that they want to do, what their passion is, what the Lord has laid upon their heart to accomplish. So let me share with you three opportunities. First of all, in Zambia, that's one of our more established fields in Africa, and we're working with about 20 churches, and those are churches that we are affiliated with and we have a relationship with. And we're looking for a missionary to go to Zambia to help establish or work with the national church leadership to establish a theological education program to not only better equip the pastors and the leadership of the churches that already exist, but to train up new pastors and new leaders, and also to even see Zambians become missionaries and be able to serve with us and help us share God's grace in the rest of Africa. Mozambique is a relatively new field. We have one missionary family working there right now, Kennedy and Sophia Santoe. Within the next couple of years, they'll be joined by Givemore and Sylvia Nayakambiri. And they're in the beginning processes of not only building relationships with a few local churches, but training pastors and doing evangelism to see that work grow in Mozambique. Burundi is one of our target fields, and so later in 2020, Tom and Michelle Sanchez will be moving to Burundi along with Methodi and Omalina Mwendapole from Tanzania, and they'll be establishing Burundi as a new field. And so we're looking for missionaries to join that team to be able to help us do evangelism, to share God's love through acts of mercy so that we can have an opportunity to share more about Christ, to be able to even ground believers more in their faith, to teach them more about the grace of God. But we ultimately want to see churches established in Burundi, and there's a university that we'll be working with that we're looking forward to being able to minister to the students who come from lots of different backgrounds and lots of different regions of even the world, so that when they understand the grace of God, they can take this back to their home countries. So those are just a few of the opportunities in Africa that we have. And next we'll be looking at Latin America. Just to emphasize the point before talking about missionary opportunities in the Caribbean and Latin America, if someone were to come to us with a ministry idea or a plan or a place to go that we haven't thought of, we certainly want to sit down and talk about that. We're not wanting to limit opportunities to just what we have here on these maps or what we have in our mind, but we're open to exploring all kinds of possibilities because we want to eventually have a presence in every country around the world. That may take a while, but we want to start working now to get there. So again, on this map, you can see that we have the same three colors, the purple, which are affiliated fields, the green countries or regions, which are places where we have residential missionaries, and then also yellow, which indicates a target field. So we'll start in Nicaragua, and Nicaragua is a country where we have a team of three missionary families, missionaries, and we have one church plant, and we're looking to expand and grow. We're looking for more missionaries to help us develop our ministry in Nicaragua, to plant more churches in that country, but also to help us develop a ministry into Honduras, to expand our ministry into Honduras. Honduras is a country where our ministry team in Nicaragua, our missionary team in Nicaragua, and also people from our church plant have gone and taken exploratory trips to see about the viability of starting a ministry there. So we're excited about doing so, but like I said a little bit ago, we need more missionaries to help us do this. South end of Nicaragua is Costa Rica, and then south of Costa Rica is Panama. And we have 2 missionary families assigned to Panama. They're working in the western part of the country in the city of David. And our first family, the Barantes, arrived there in October of 2019. And they have just started a ministry, and they're getting to know people. They're starting to disciple people, do evangelism. Our goal there, of course, is to plant churches, starting in the region around David and working out from that point. So we need more missionaries to help us in Panama as well to do, again, evangelism and equipping local believers to do evangelism, church planting, training, and sharing God's love. Moving then south to South America, we have needs both in Bolivia and Paraguay. So Bolivia is a country where we have been for a long time, and right now our missionaries there, the Hansens and the Vergaras, have established and developed a Bible training center. And so we're looking for another missionary to come and join this newly established Bible training center that's been in existence now for a couple of years to help equip and train Bolivians to not only teach in that Bible training center, but also for the missionary to teach there as well, because we want to continue to develop a new generation of pastors and even missionaries, Bolivian missionaries. In fact, we already have a Bolivian missionary. Her name is Lily Ortega. She's serving in Nicaragua with our team. But we want to see more Bolivians doing ministry in their own country, but also beyond. And we want to train more pastors, missionaries, and church leaders in Bolivia. So that's one of our main needs there. Then moving to the south and east of Bolivia is Paraguay. Paraguay is a country where we have 4 missionaries assigned, and they're all working in the city of Ciudad del Este, which is on the eastern side of Paraguay. It borders Brazil and Argentina. It's really a strategic city, and these families have already established a church plant there that has about 100 or so adults that congregate on a monthly basis or affiliated with that church. We're looking to plant churches not only in Ciudad del Este, but we also are looking to plant churches throughout the rest of Paraguay. And we're also wanting to develop a theological training center, somewhere that we can train Paraguayans and other believers from other parts of the area that have moved to Paraguay, or parts of the South America that moved to Paraguay, so we can train them as well to be pastors, to be lay leaders, to be missionaries. And one of our goals eventually then is to not only work in Paraguay and to expand the work in Paraguay, but to cross over into Brazil and to be able to start a work across the border in Brazil, and also in Argentina, where we don't have a presence either. So those are places we haven't yet taken official survey trips, but we want to do so soon as we look to those places as well. And so we need more missionaries to help us in Paraguay. And as we go and we look at the rest of the Caribbean and Latin America, there are other countries that we want to take survey trips to recently. GMI missionary Carlos Brunk and I took a survey trip to Aruba to look at the possibility of being able to start a work there as well. So as you can see, there's lots of opportunities that we have, and we need more missionaries so we can continue to grow and expand our reach, not only in Africa, but also in Latin America and in the rest of the world as well. After considering these opportunities with GMI, or even thinking of some new or different opportunities that we haven't thought of, you might be asking yourself, so what's the process? How do I become a GMI missionary? How do I join the GMI missionary family? First step in the process is pretty easy. We want to talk to you. You can find our contact information on our gracem.org website, and we'd love to sit down and be able to talk to you more about your passion for ministry and what that looks like. Once you decide you want to become a missionary with us, you would fill out an application, and we'd also check references. And after you do so, we'd sit down with you again and discuss a more detailed ministry plan. And this not only includes where you would want to go and serve and where our needs are, but it also would be a time where we discuss how you would integrate yourself into a missionary team, either on a new or established field, to be able to help that field accomplish goals consistent with its strategic plan. The GMI board is what ultimately approves any missionary candidate and where that missionary would go. So we want to submit your application and your ministry plan to the GMI board. The GMI board would interview you. They meet 3 times a year. And after approval, the GMI home office would set a budget for you. Now, this budget would not only include monthly expenses, but also one-time or special expenses. For example, you would need to buy a vehicle when you get to your new field. You'd also need to raise funds potentially for language school, or setting up a new home, or traveling to get to the field. And those would be one-time or special expenses. But also you have a monthly budget, and you would want to raise monthly funds for your monthly budget, which would include things like your monthly ministry expenses or your monthly living expenses, health insurance, taxes, travel. We want to set aside some money for travel so you can go to the States, back to the States, to be able to share in churches and with individuals about what the Lord has been doing through your ministry. Also, there would be a line item for setting aside some money for children's education. There will also be a small portion that would go to the home office, and the home office would then, we want to take the burden off of you, some of the administrative burden, so that you can spend as close to 100% of your time as possible doing ministry, instead of having to spend a lot of time doing the administrative things that we can certainly do on your behalf. Now, how do we raise funds? That's a question that many people have, and that's an impediment that many people have to even saying, I want to go and be a missionary. They're concerned about raising funds, but we really have 4 different ways that people raise funds. The first one is we send out direct mailings, and you would come up with a list of people to whom we'd send a letter out, a paper letter, explaining more. You explain more about your ministry and what it is that you're going to do, what the need is in the field you're going to, how it is that you can meet that need. And I would write a letter on your behalf explaining about your finances and raising funds and how much you need to raise, both the monthly funds and also special expenses, so that you can get to the field. Now, also with not just a paper mailing, but we'd also expect you to make your need known through social media. This is another way that people are going to become aware of what your needs are and how they can get behind you and support you. Another way that you can raise funds, or we would have you raise funds, is by visiting churches. And there's churches that are connected with GMI. You might know of churches on your own that you could visit. And so by visiting churches, you can go and you can challenge individuals, and you can challenge a church to support you monthly and or to give towards your one-time project needs. The most effective means that we've found of raising funds is by meeting with people one-on-one. And this is something that we would give you guidance in and help you in that process, or give you some more training with respect to, so that you can meet with people one-on-one and to be able to communicate what your ministry will be and how people can get behind you. So after you've raised your funds, or I should say while you're raising your funds, this is also a time where we can help you find some additional training, or maybe get some orientation, whether that's preparing you for cultural adaptation, or giving you special training, whether it be in church planning or some other aspect of ministry that you'll be doing when you're on the field. So once you've raised your funds, it's now time to leave for the field. It's worthwhile to think about the benefits of becoming a missionary. My family and I were missionaries in Costa Rica for 8 years, and it was a blessing to all of us to be able to serve the Lord together. First and foremost, when you think about being a missionary, you think about sharing the gospel and training others to share the gospel as well. And you think about all the people who will come to know the Lord and have a relationship with Him that will last forever. And also all the lives that will be changed through your intentional investment and your ministry to them. Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 19, he refers to those people that he would be with forever in heaven as his crown of rejoicing. Also, when you're a missionary, you're working on a team with other missionaries who come from all over the world, and they have diverse skills, and unique abilities and talents and backgrounds, and you get to work with them. And so as you learn to work with others with different personalities as well, you really enhance your teamwork skills, which are so important not only in the mission field, but just in life in general. Also, one of the other benefits of becoming a missionary is learning a new language. It just expands your ability to be able to communicate with so many other different people around the world. Also, you get to see the Lord work in ways you never thought possible. And GMI is a faith-based missionary organization. Every step we take is based on faith, whether it be finances, whether it be leaving your home country and going to a new country to work and serve, joining a team, setting goals that are very ambitious. We're a very faith-based missionary organization, but when you stretch yourself and you put yourself to the very limits of what you think you're capable of, that's when you see God work in some really amazing ways and in ways you did not think were possible. You're also going to make all kinds of new friends in the mission field, not only just with your missionaries, but maybe even with other organizations, but you're also going to make a lot of other friends with the people you're working with on the field. And you're going to be able to appreciate their culture and appreciate some of the things they value. And they're going to challenge you and your values, and it'll make you a more whole and complete person. But also, you can enjoy both informal and formal professional development. I just mentioned a little bit ago about team building and how important that is. But also, we want to encourage our missionaries to develop themselves professionally, whether it be further education, attending seminars and training, but gaining all the tools they need to become the best they possibly can be. And finally, you're going to develop a real eternal perspective on life and people. When you become a missionary and you put your faith step by step in the Lord, and you see Him do some amazing things through you because of that, and you see lives change, you see people come to know the Lord, you're going to step back and you're going to have a different perspective on life than you would if you didn't become a missionary to begin with. As you think more and more about missions and serving the Lord in the mission field, you should really ask yourself, how are you preparing yourself now for missionary life later? One of the first questions is, how are you serving the Lord in this moment? Because when you get to the field, you're not going to start automatically serving the Lord then if you're not doing it right now. And so practice serving the Lord now so that when you get to the field, it's just a natural extension of who you are. We use this term dating rather flippantly, but who are you pursuing unto marriage? And if you want to go into missions, are you pursuing someone for marriage that also shares the same goal? This align with you in terms of what you want to do in serving the Lord overseas. What about finances? This is something that's very important. You know, for anyone, actually any Christian, is to get your financial house in order, to pay off debt, to live simply in a sense that you're not living above and beyond your means, so that you're actually preparing yourself now financially for missionary life later. Are you studying God's Word and applying God's Word now? This is kind of like the first question. All right, how are you serving the Lord right now? But it's so important that you're in God's Word and you're taking God's truths and principles and applying them to your lives and encouraging others with them as well. Are you working in teams, whether it be in your church or at your workplace or in college or wherever you might be? Are you working in teams, and are you doing so effectively? Are you able to humble yourself and be an effective member of the team, putting others' interests before your own? And finally, how are you seeking to empower others? Is it always important for you to be the center of what's going on, or are you able to see the benefit of empowering others to be able to do the work of ministry? For more information about GMI, visit gracem.org. There's information about becoming a missionary. At the top of the home page, there's a tab that's entitled Becoming a Missionary. A couple different documents there, one of which is a link to a document called Preparing for Missionary Life. Another document is Frequently Asked Questions, and these are answers to questions about becoming a missionary with GMI. Also, at the top of the home page, there's a link for a tab for opportunities with links to scholarships and scholarship opportunities. And also there's a link to more information about opportunities to serve with GMI. Finally, there's a link at the top of the home page entitled About Us, and under that there's a link for contact information so you can get a hold of us and communicate more with us about missions.